All right, y'all, we're gonna get it started. We are going to get it started. Only because it's Friday. I'm not trying to keep y'all. It's Friday. We kicking it. Hey, that's so Raven Deny. I hope I said that right. But this is gonna be a short show. It's not well, I don't know how short, but it's not gonna be like a 2 hour show. I am running out of space on StreamYard and I'm not going to get the advanced until Monday. Um, I hope everybody's staying warm and preparing for this snowstorm that's supposed to be coming. Well, I'm in Atlanta, so it's going to be an ice storm. It's supposed to start on Sunday. So I'm trying to like get my house ready and make the house really clean and wash all the clothes and things like that, just in case we don't have power for a few days. It's Danae, but spelled differently. Okay. Hopefully I got it right that second time. I have a difficult name for people to pronounce, so I understand um, how pronouncing a name correctly can be a touchy subject. I'm not on camera today. I'm tired, but it's Friday. There's something that I wanted to touch on today because I have not mentioned it, and I really wanted this channel to be like a channel for us to like really praise the people that are doing good in our community, praise our elders that paved the path for us to be able to do the things that we're doing now. I really wanted to highlight um, Black businesses um, and, even highlight, very, very special children that are doing great things in our community. This is what I want this channel to be. The only reason why I'm doing these lives is because I want people to know that I'm here and I want to stay consistent with it. But I have a lot of plans for this channel. I have like really big plans, things that I really want to do. Um, and I'm not going to be able to do that unless I build it up and stay consistent for the people that want to view my content. So I really appreciate y'all being here. One thing that I really wanted to highlight is Miss Gladys West, who was a mathematician known for her contributions to mathematical modeling of the shape of the Earth. Her work on the development of satellite geodesy models were later incorporated into global positioning system, the GPS. So I really wanted to highlight her. She passed away, but she is also like, one of our great elders who did something very great for the world. She created something that we all use every single day and that, people will continue to use for years to come. So I really wanted to, highlight her today. Whew, hold on, guys. Amir he went to 3 different Targets for me to look for something that they did not have. And it's people are panic buying right now, y'all. People are panic buying. Yeah, people are panic buying. There's like everything is out in the store. Like he went to Publix last night because he was trying to get like foods that that we can eat if the power goes out. But he was also trying to get foods that we can eat no matter what. And so he was trying to get me some steaks because I really enjoy eating beef. And he said everything was out. There was no chicken, there was no beef, there was no pork, there was nothing in the store. Everything was gone. So he just went to like 3 different stores. Hold on, y'all. Sorry, y'all. But yeah, he just went to 3 different stores trying to. Oh, I love your content on X. That's why I found out about your YouTube channel because you're speaking the truth for our people. So thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I really believe that I said this in my stream earlier, but I really believe this is a time where we all have to start either creating content, making music, making art, making writing books, make a Substack, do something, because we're in a very, very particular time where it's like there's a changing of the guard. There's going to be this huge wealth transfer. And I think the wealth transfer is spiritual. I know the ADOS people, they keep saying that it's going to be monetarily, financially. I believe that as well. But I think the biggest wealth transfer that we're about to have is a spiritual one. And that is when we actually stand up. Be one, Ostel Gray. We actually stand up in our rightful places on this earth, and we become the leaders that we have always been. It seems like we have been in the shadows, creating, in the shadows, creating, and people have been taking credit for the things that we have been doing. They have been farming our energy through pain, through struggle, and we are at a place in our development where we can say we are not going to be struggling anymore because we don't have to. That's not why we're here. We're not here to struggle, but we have to change our mindsets, and we actually really have to establish who we want to be on this earth moving forward. And that's why I wanted to like start creating content, because if people um are listening to the things that I'm saying on Twitter, then I think I need to expand the audience, and I really need to move my rhetoric around so more people can hear it. Because even the things that I'm saying, of course, I'm only stepping for my people, my Black American people. That is who I'm speaking to primarily. But the things that I'm saying, it can help anybody. I think we as a people, as humans, really have to start understanding who we want to be on this earth. Do we want to be a part of the group that is destroying the earth, or do we want to be a part of the group that is trying to heal the earth? You know what I mean? So, yeah. This morning I did a stream because I came across a video of a food influencer named Peaks, and he was actually at Destination Smokehouse, and it was interesting that he went, because it was clear to me that he doesn't really follow like the social media discourse, and he might not even care. But I thought it was very interesting that after all of us online have been saying we're boycotting, we're not going back, we don't know what's going on, and it's weird, he was like in the area, and he was like, let me go see what's up. And the energy was weird. The energy was weird because Unc was not there. And apparently he was there yesterday. Like, he's been peeking in and peeking out. But that's what I'm noticing, because once we start disengaging and pulling back our energy from things, and that's just us not paying attention. You know what I mean? Us not paying attention to something that they want us to pay attention to, like these ICE protests. We're not there, and they're all trying to figure out why. And if you think about it, they're trying to figure out where we are because they want to see how they can get us there. Our energy is being farmed by demons. And what we have to do is channel our energy and put it back into ourselves, into our families, into our communities, so that we can be successful. So we don't have to rely on these demons. I believe so too. And I've been working on my genealogy for the past 3 weeks now, because I found out my grandmother on my mom's side is Black and Indian due to her dad's mother is Indian and Black. And all of us have some type of indigenous history. My now ex-husband, his father is his father's father was Indian. I don't know which tribe, but he was a part of a tribe in South Carolina. So his father, my ex-husband, his father is 74. His father, which is really just the second, um, two generations back, was actually full-blooded Indian. This is this isn't a mystery in our families. They try to joke on us and say, "Oh, well, y'all think y'all are Indian. Y'all say y'all got Indian in your blood." Of course we do, because we are a part of the indigenous people of this country. We're not immigrants. Yes, we may have African ancestry. A lot of us don't see it in our genealogy. I haven't found it in my genealogy, but we also have European ancestry as well. So that's why a lot of people are saying, like, don't say that I'm African when, one, I can't find an African in my bloodline. Two, I can trace my ancestry in this country 10 generations, and I've never even been to the continent of Africa. So that's why a lot of people are really questioning this line of, or this narrative that has been pushed on us. Because the thing that I'm just going to keep calling the devils. The devils want to do, because I don't really like calling them they, because people like to say, "Oh, well, who is they?" The devils that rule the world, they want to disconnect us from this land because they know that we are the indigenous people of this land. That's why they changed and reclassified us from Indian to mulatto to Negro to colored to black. You know what I mean? They just kept confusing and reclassifying us to move us further and further away from who we were. So now today, when we stand up and say, okay, well, you don't want to classify us the way that we are, or say who we are, you want to try to hide that information from us, we'll just say that we're American. And there is hundreds of years of documentation that says that we are American. Yes, sweetheart. I'm here to give you a kiss. You're going to give me a kiss? Okay. Can you give me a kiss and then go back to the living room?
Are you working?
Yes, I'm working.
Okay.
Go wipe your nose, okay, baby?
Okay.
Thank you. Yep, my grandmother's dad's mother is full Indian as well, and I just like that they say we are African. Yeah. I mean, I said this a few years ago on Twitter because it just came to my mind that for the last 400 to 500 years, it's kind of like we've been in a weird enslavement with the Europeans, but the Africans who sold us, it's kind of like they want us back. You know what I mean? Because they want to put us back into another slavery with them for the next 400 or 500 years. You understand? They want to be able to claim our accomplishments because we share skin tone, and they want to say that we're African American. This is just a narrative that they made up, and it's just to disconnect us from our true inheritance to this country. We are the only people that are on who are in America that really have claim to it. Not even the Native Americans have a real claim to this country, because if they did, they wouldn't be living in the conditions that they live in today. They are on these reservations. They don't know how to feed themselves. They're stuck relying on the government to do anything for them. If this was their land, that wouldn't be happening. You see us almost 200 years removed from slavery. They thought that they were going to kill us off, and we're still here. There's 50 million plus of us here still in this country, even with crack, abortion, environmental racism, all these things that they have done to try to eliminate us from this land. We're still growing. They have not been able to kill us off. But the Native Americans, they're less than 1% of the population. If they were truly indigenous to this land, that wouldn't have happened to them. So that's just what I believe. Amina, no, honey. Hold on. You can watch them in that bathroom. No. You can watch them in that bathroom.
No. Sorry.
Sorry, y'all. I have a very precocious 4-year-old, and she just does not take no for an answer. She always has to be in the mix. Right. How are you native to this land, but y'all left here? That's true. I don't. This is another thing that I think I have a lot of theories. I don't really have enough information to back them up. I'm still doing all the research, but one piece of history that's hidden is that there were Filipinos that were brought to Mexico, and I guess the territory that's now known as Texas in California. There were Filipinos brought there to work as well. They weren't enslaved, but they came here on ships to work. And some of those people were reclassified as Native Americans as well. So there's a lot of history that has been hidden and changed, and a lot of it has to do with us. And it's because we were people that was forced to work. Another thing, there were probably even instances where we had tribes that were taken over by Europeans. We probably fought the Europeans. They won. They overtook us. They enslaved us. You know what I mean? There's a lot that happened. Like I remember when I was a kid in school, they would tell us, and this is something that I will never forget because I think about like, why did I even believe that? That doesn't even make any sense. We were told that when the Europeans came over here, they tried to enslave the natives and it didn't work because the natives weren't strong enough to endure the type of labor that the Europeans were forcing them to do. And that's why they went to Africa to get Africans to be enslaved in this country. And that doesn't make any sense. Because who would be able to work the land other than the people that already lived there and was already working the land? You know what I mean? These people were already growing these crops like cotton, tobacco. They were already growing those crops. Why would they go to Africa and bring some people here to do that? That's stuff that's not even being grown in Africa. None of that makes sense. So once you really start like understanding the narrative that they're in these stories that they try to create and make it history, because it's really just their stories, his stories. You understand that none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense. So one of the most important things that we need to do, and what you're doing, Danae, which all of us are supposed to be doing, if you don't already know your genealogy, you need to do your genealogy. Because if you don't know who you are here, you're going to allow them to tell you that you're not from here and that you're just some lost African living in America. And none of that makes sense. Especially if you've been here you've documented to be here for at least 300 years. That's how far I can go back. Documented here for that long. I don't speak any tribal languages from Africa. I don't know any. I've never been to Africa. And then when you think about the way we act compared to the way they act, even if we were African 400 or 500 years ago, those primitive qualities were beaten out of us. We're no longer those people. So it's very important for us today to decide who we want to be today. And that's why I wanted to watch this video. I watched this video a few years ago, or maybe last year. I'm not exactly sure when it came out. It says a year ago. But I like Brooklyn St. Michael. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I will subscribe on this channel. But yeah, I like his content. I think he used to be like a Hebrew Israelite, and then he left, and then he came back and rebranded himself. I'm not sure, but I like his content. I don't agree with everything he says, obviously, but he does say some things that really make you think. So we'll watch the video, and I'll chime in if I have something to say about his opinion.
Now, how is it that the members of the black community, such as the celebrities, actors, and the entertainers from the lowest rung of the ladder, came to be the most influential members to the black community? Why are they there, and what caused them to get to that spot? The explanation comes from professor and sociologist Dr. E. Fraser Franklin in his 1957 book titled Black Bourgeoisie. And as we go through this explanation, I want you to listen very carefully, because what we're going to go on is a journey. And in this journey, we're going to deal with some backstory on Black American culture. And all this is going to lead us to our final destination of answering this question. But I need you to go through the full journey in order to get the understanding. And so once you understand this history, then it'll no longer be a mystery. And so let's go in here to page 113, where it says this: there have been only two really vital cultural traditions in the social history of the Negro in the United States. One being the genteel tradition of the small group of mulattoes who assimilated the morals and manners of the slave-holding aristocracy. So the first of the two notable black traditions was the genteel tradition, which placed high value on conventional family life, sexual purity, manners, education, and so forth. And this tradition was learned from the slave-holding aristocracy, or the nobility, or the elite, or the upper class slaveholders, right? And so this small group of mostly mulattoes took their culture from these people. And keep in mind that it says small, because most of the blacks didn't have this culture. So this was one of the cultures. Let's continue. And the other, the culture of the black folk who gave the world the spirituals, which is the culture which developed as an adaptation to the slave environment. The first small group had the mind of the slaveholder, and the second mass group had the mind of the slave, right? Let's continue. The genteel tradition, or the one that came from this aristocracy, flourished especially in such large communities of free mulattoes as those in Charleston, South Carolina, and New Orleans, Louisiana. It was maintained by those mulatto families that had acquired as part of their family traditions the patterns of behavior which were associated with the ideal of the Southern lady and Southern gentleman. Some families took pride in the fact that a mulatto ancestor could not be distinguished in his physical appearance, dress, manners, and speech from his white half-brother. And they had these thoughts because they had bought into the idea that the traditional European features were superior to all the others. And so
that's interesting to me, because where did these slaveholding families develop that type of culture from? Because what we know of Europe, we know most of the people in Europe were just feral cavemen, pretty much. So they developed that culture from the European aristocracy. And what we know about the European aristocracy is that a lot of them were melanated. So it's kind of like that type of culture kind of came full circle. So I believe that the mulattoes adapted a culture that was already their culture, that they just did not know was their own culture.
In other words, they believed this to be true. Let's continue. As a rule, These families formed a closed circle from which were excluded all who could not boast of similar ancestry and did not conform to the same standards of morals and manners.
Hold on, I just saw a comment from Dante 3X, Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1, question 6. Why does the devil call our people Africans? Hello? I guess you got to be in the nation to be able to answer that question.
They were exceedingly self-conscious of their culture, which consisted of the enjoyment of English and, in Louisiana, French classical literature and music. Sometimes they maintained literary societies in which they could enjoy and foster their culture. Many of these families migrated before the Civil War to the north, where they formed a small upper class that boasted of its genteel traditions. After the Civil War, the free mulatto class continued to hold itself aloof from the masses of freedmen. The Civil War ended in 1865, and by that time, the masses of blacks were no longer legally enslaved. And the Negroes with the genteel culture, they were trying to distance themselves from the masses because at that point they were culturally different people. Let's continue. In Louisiana, the hostility of some members of this class to the newly emancipated blacks was so great that they opposed giving political rights to the freedmen. But generally, the free mulatto class and its descendants assumed as far as possible positions of leadership among the Negro masses.
So the free mulatto class kind of reminds you of the boule class of today, like the Roland Martins, the Jasmine Crockett's, these people who are pretty much deployed to be like the overseers of the freedmen's. They're supposed to be the ones. Al Sharpton is another one. They're supposed to be the ones that are supposed to keep us in line and make us feel like we don't want to be free anymore. You know what I mean? Because they think that they're so much better than us because they have been able to assimilate into white culture, which isn't even white culture because those people don't even act like that. Yep, Danae.
They did not break down the traditional barriers to easy social intercourse and marriage. Even in their religious affiliations, the descendants of the free mulattoes held aloof from the Negro masses. They generally affiliated with the Episcopal, Congregational, Presbyterian, and Catholic churches, while the Negro masses, as we have seen, were affiliated with the Baptist and Methodist churches. The descendants of the free mulattoes became, after the Civil War, the core of a small class which undertook to maintain the American pattern of family life and conventional sex mores. So the offspring of this class looked to maintain the values that they had developed over the years. And this was one of the reasons that they kept a distance from the Negro masses. Because if they would have started mingling closely with the Negro masses, then their culture would have been compromised. Especially being that there were more in numbers coming from the Negro masses who were the carriers of the slave mindset. Let's continue. In some small communities in the South, a single family with this social and cultural background would live in complete isolation rather than associate with the masses of Negroes. And why was that? For the reason we just went over. In their quiet, obscure lives, they expressed often their contempt for the black upstarts who, in their view, and often in fact, possessed neither morals nor manners. And again, this is why they attempted to separate themselves from the Negro masses, who had a very different set of morals and manners. And this is how people have always separated themselves before the European colonizer came along and started lumping people into these very large groups.
You see how important that is? We have to separate ourselves, but not just in morals and manners and things like that. We have to separate ourselves by mindset, because there's no way that we are able to be in a group with people that don't think the same way that we do. And that's why delineation is so important, because while we're delineating, we're saying that you people over there are not us, and we have this rich history that we can draw on, that establishes our identity. But not just with the delineation do we need to by delineating, um, ethnically, do we need to separate? We need to separate also by morals and values. We need to start establishing a code that says we don't do this and we don't allow these things to happen in our community. I think once we start establishing that type of code, a lot more things are going to change for us. Delineation and disengaging from all of this bull is really what's going to well, it's really what has been slowly giving us like this boost politically and socially, just delineating. But once we really start implementing a code that says these are the things that we allow, these are the things we don't allow, and we don't allow people that harm us to come into our community and benefit off of us. Once that happens, we're really going to take over. Pieces, the abridged answer to that question: to make our people of North America believe that the people on that continent are the only people they have and are all savage. The original people called this continent Asia, but the devils call it Africa. Brother, when I tell people that Africa is actually Asia, they do not want to believe it. But also, they people want to believe that the Arabs of today are the Arabs of yesterday. Islam is much older than the Prophet Muhammad. Islam has been the way of life for centuries, for probably thousands and thousands of years. And I do believe that Islam, I know this is a very touchy subject, but I do believe Islam is probably going to be the prevailing religion in the coming years. They try to mix up the history so we don't know where we're from. They try to mix up the history so we don't know who we are. But that's why we have to establish ourselves. Identifying ourselves. I don't care if you call yourself FBA, ADOS, Black American. I don't even care if you call yourself African American, but I want you to be able to stand on it. Because right now there is a war on our identity, and we have to stand on who we are as a people and who we want to become. I'm gonna keep saying this. We have to establish a code. We have this one big Negro mind where once Trump became president, I think we all decided that we were going to completely disengage politically. And that's one benefit of having that one big Negro mind. But we're also divided in our group. And we're divided in our group because there's still people that want to follow the system of white supremacy, and they want to try to ingratiate themselves to it because they feel like this system is alive and well, and that they'll be able to do what they need to do, become who they need to become, make the money that they want, have the status, the social status that they want to have. They believe that they'll still be able to have that under this system. So they're calling themselves Democrats, they're calling themselves Republicans. They're, really thinking that this system is going to shield them from what's to come. It's not going to shield them. These are people that we need to separate ourselves from. Anybody that is still living in a dichotomy where there's only two options and you have to decide which side of the fence you want to be on, we can't deal with those people because they're still in this system. We have to operate outside of the system if we're going to be successful. We have never been able to operate inside the system and be successful without pretty much tearing down our people and turning our backs on them. Look at all the people that are celebrities. When things happen, they never speak on our behalf. The LeBron Jameses, the Jay-Z's, they're real. These are all these boule free class mulattoes that this Brooklyn guy is talking about right now. They don't want to associate themselves with us. They act like Democrats and Republicans aren't. No. They do. They act like Democrats and Republicans aren't from the same bird. These are all systems that are being used to keep us in a box where we feel like we need the government, or we need these certain white supremacist systems to stay in place so that we can eat, so that we can live and work. This system is breaking down. Facts, delineation, separation, and reparations. Exactly. But I believe that we will be getting reparations in our lifetime. Because the more that we disengage and we become insular and we only start working with each other, the devils are not going to be able to hold what's left of their system up with sticks. That's why they're fast tracking AI, because they're trying to figure out how they are going to be able to sustain themselves with the people moving away from them. And it's not just us. It's not just Black Americans, but we are the trendsetters. There's no way that the system can still work and exist the way that it is with us not upholding it anymore. And it hasn't worked for us. So we can't continue to uphold it. We can keep going, because I want to hear what else he has to say about this.
Like Black, white, Asian, and so forth, right? Groups that never initially agreed to be lumped in there together. Let's continue. The attitudes of those who came to terms with the successful members of the rising Black masses was expressed by a young mulatto college student who was a descendant of a prominent free mulatto family. When asked how she felt when a big, ill-mannered Negro male student addressed her rudely and tossed her about, replied, "Well, since I've got to live with these N-words, I might as well act like one." So now at this point, we have members of the Negro masses who were attending school with other members from the mulatto class, and there was conflict. The mulatto class was stuck with the Negro mass, and we can see the frustration coming from this student.
Hold on, because I just hear yelling in the background. Hold on. I'm sorry about that, y'all. Y'all, I know y'all probably done left, but the children are just, oh my God. My daughter is just very controlling, and she's always trying to boss her brother around. And of course, she's always right, but he's not going to listen to her because she's the little sister. Like, she was yelling at him because he used the bathroom and he didn't wash his hands. And she wanted him to go back in the bathroom and wash his hands, and he would not do it. So I had to diffuse that situation. Right. That's why they are mad, because they ain't us. I think that everybody in the world knows that we have power, and they were just hoping that we didn't know that we had power so that they could continue to siphon that power from us. You know what I mean? Like, K-pop is the biggest genre of music right now. And all it is 90s R&B repackaged, watered down. And it's not as good. You know what I mean? Like, I can see the appeal of it because it's like, she's a Capricorn. She's a Capricorn, and she's very much a Capricorn. But yeah, K-pop is the biggest genre in the world, and it's just our music watered down and repackaged. And that's what they keep doing all over the world. They keep watering down and repackaging the things that we've created. Afrobeats is something that was repackaged, watered down, and they think that they'll be able to, it's like they think that they'll be able to do our dance better than us. Right? I consider them Asians as white people. Everybody is white but us. When we start understanding that, either that everybody is white but us, or everybody wants to be white but us. Once we start really understanding that, we'll be able to deal with these people differently. And I'm the type of person where, like, you can't wear a mask around me. And that's why I don't be around a lot of people, because I can see through the mask. I can see that you're pretending to be in my face because you think that you're going to be able to get something from me. And you're pretending to like me, or you're pretending to tolerate me, but you really hate me. And I can see that in everybody's face. That is really a gift that God gave me, because I can look at anybody, it doesn't matter who it is, and I can tell that they hate me, and they're really just pretending. And we all have to develop that skill, because we're spending our money, we're giving our time and effort into things, people, places that hate us. And we got to stop that. Right. And same here. That's why I don't have a lot of friends. Yeah. And when we think on a global scale, we have to understand that we don't have any friends. All these people, they see us as a slave class, and they all think that they can steal from us. And it's because we have been allowing it for years. And the last 50 years has been like the acceleration of all of that. And everybody is seeing that we're moving differently. And we're moving differently because we're one big Negro. We didn't have to have a Zoom call to talk about how we were going to be moving from here on out. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, there's people in our group, in our Black American group, that think differently from us, but they're still doing the same thing that we're doing. It might be for different reasons, but just like the Kamala supporters, the people that wanted to vote for Kamala and they wanted her to be president, when she lost, they said that they were done and they were resting. That's what you hear all those women, those 92%ers, you hear them saying, we're resting. You know what I mean? They're not doing it for the same reasons that we are. We've decided to disengage because we're not continuing to feed into the system. We're not buying into the system anymore. They're doing the same thing, but they're boycotting Target because they're not buying into the system anymore. But we're using our feelings, emotions. We're not giving them that type of energy anymore. That's why we're not at these ICE protests. They wanted us to talk about Palestine. We're not doing any of it because we're realizing that our emotions are feeding the beast. People make the world go round. That is real. People really do make the world go round. And it's because our energy, our emotions, that's why they want us to hate. They want us to hate. They want us to kill. They want us to rob. They want us to steal. They want that energy because it's on the same frequency as love. When it makes more sense for us just to love. And what we're doing right now, we're learning how to love ourselves. We're learning how to love our brothers and our sisters, the cousins. They're going to have to fend for themselves. I didn't vote because I see through BS that both parties are on. I voted, and I probably voted in a way that people will be very mad. But guess what? Kamala is not our president. And if Kamala was president, the same stuff will be happening now, but the media would not be amplifying it. The only reason why they're amplifying it now because they're against Trump. Biden was doing so much harm to Black Americans. Nobody knew what he was doing because the media doesn't amplify it. He told us what he was going to do while he was campaigning. That's why I didn't vote for Biden. Kamala was going to do the same thing, but probably 10 times as worse because she's an Indian. There would be like 1 million Indians in Atlanta. November 6th, there would have been 1 million Indians in Atlanta. I'm telling you. How do you feel about interracial relationships? I'm against it. I think that we only need to intermarry, Black Americans marrying and having families with Black Americans. When I see interracial relationships, I just understand that these people aren't a part of our tribe. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to tell you who to be with, but when I see that, it just shows me that you're not on the same thing that we're on. We're all about community building. We're nation building over here. We can't nation build with the devil. We're not doing that. And this is coming from somebody my father had a baby with a white woman. And I still to this day do not like that woman. And I don't even talk to my sister because she is literally a white woman. You know what I mean? You can't build with that. We're trying to build nations. We're trying to build strong families. Like I said, I'm divorced, but me and my ex-husband, we love each other. We decided that we weren't going to be compatible romantically, but we still have a family together. We're building our nation in a different way. I need everybody to understand that we have, like I keep saying, we have to establish who we are in this moment and what we want going forward. We have to establish morals and values. We have to establish a code because if we don't, it'll be more people coming in trying to tell us what we should be doing, like what we see with these ICE protests. Everybody's trying to make it seem like we're supposed to be on the front line of everybody's struggles. We are not on the front line of our struggles. And right now we are preparing for what's coming. Something is going to come where we have to put our energy into. And until that time, we don't need to get into everybody else's skirmishes. Right? I completely understand. That's why I'm pro-Black love and pro-Black everything. I'm pro-Black American. I'm only focused on our ethnic group right now because we are experiencing ethnocide. The cost of living in this country is astronomical. We are being pushed out of everything. All of these industries, they're not hiring us. They're hiring Black immigrants, but they're not hiring us. My ex-husband is in trade school right now because he is trying to become his own business. These are things that we have to these are things that we have to worry about. How are we going to be able to raise the next generation if we can't garner an income? If we don't have education? These are things we need to be worrying about. We don't need to be worrying about if immigrants are getting deported. Like you broke the law. That's none of our business. And that's why people are mad at us, because we're not throwing capes on. We have the capes that we have on, they're for us. We paid the cost to be the boss. All these other people, they have not paid any cost. If you want to remain here, you need to pay a cost. All right, we're gonna finish this video
here. And I'm pretty sure the Negro masses didn't like them either, right? Let's continue. On the whole, the tradition of the gentleman has ceased to have influence on either the manners or morals of the Negro community. The tradition they had stopped having influence on the Negro community. And later on, we're going to find out exactly why, because it ties into the main topic of this video. In the Negro colleges, it is futile for teachers to exhort the students to behave like ladies and gentlemen. Futile means pointless. And why was it futile or pointless to get the Negro students to behave like ladies and gentlemen? Because at this point, the Negro masses had begun to take over. And the culture that they carried was nothing like the genteel culture that some of the mulatto class had. So from here...
And that's a very interesting point, because why would it influence them at all? These are people that are former slaves who are pretty much going to the same schools as these higher class mulatto people. How is acting like you going to benefit me? These are things that we need to think about. These people that locked them out, that tried to lock them out of certain spaces, are angry because these people don't want to be like them. That's literally what we're going through right now. Like I said, with these boule people, they're pissed because we want to delineate. We don't want to be like you. You want us to absorb you into our one big Negro because you need us. We don't really need you, because all you want to do is kiss white people's ass in the first place. Like a Roland Martin, who is a Haitian, who all he does is disparages Black people. He hates Black people. Why would I want to be like you? Me and you, we will never see eye to eye. But they want us to act like them, people who, like I said, all they do is kiss white people's ass. We're not doing that. But again, that's why we have to establish a code. And speaking of which, we should probably watch some of Neely Fuller cartoons when we finish watching this. We'll watch some of the Neely Fuller cartoons. And Dante 3X, thank you so much. I know we see each other. Do I follow you on Twitter? Y'all go on my if y'all follow me on Twitter, at me so I can follow y'all back if I'm not following y'all. Yeah, let's finish. We are only 7 minutes into this video. Oh my god, I said this wasn't gonna be you let me speed this up. Because I said this wasn't gonna be a long. I'm up here running my mouth. When I get on my soapbox and start talking, I just be going.
Let's understand some of the background coming from the Negro masses and the culture that they had developed. The folk culture of the American Negro developed out of his experiences on American soil. Whatever element of African culture might have survived enslavement became merged with the Negro's experience in the new environment and lost their original meaning. The Negro was made in America, right? From the language, the food, the thinking, the dancing, the songs, right? And even the physical makeup being a mixture of different people. And Dr. Fraser says that anything that survived that would have come from Africa was merged into this new environment and it lost its original meaning, right? So a new culture and a new people were created from this completely different experience. Let's continue. From the beginning, the Negro had to learn the language of his masters, and there was no chance to preserve African languages except in some isolated areas, as for example, along the coast of South Carolina and Georgia.
And this, honestly, I've never read this book before. I don't really see a point in reading it because, in my opinion, it kind of like everything that I've heard about this book, it kind of ignores the fact that we also had indigenous cultures that were lost as well. So, I mean, only like 4% of people that, 4% of Africans even made it to America in the first place. Like most of them went to the South America, the Brazils and the Central America, Jamaica, Haiti. Most of them went to those places. So whatever African culture that we did have merged with the indigenous cultures and the European culture. So even harping on the fact that there was no chance to preserve African languages, none of that matters. None of it matters today because African languages don't do anything for Africans, period. The African cultures, their tribal cultures, do nothing for them, period. That's why they're trying to leave and go to Europe and come here and try to be absorbed in our cultures. Because their own culture does not do anything for them. They can't make money from it. It's not modernized enough to even understand what's going on in the world right now. They might as well be cave people as well.
And the neighboring islands. The character which the Negro family acquired under the system of slavery was due to the exigencies of servitude rather than surviving African patterns of behavior. Exigencies meaning what was needed in a situation. So the character of the Negro family,
and what is the African pattern of behavior? At the end of the day, Africans kidnapped and sold humans to Europeans into slavery. So what would that even be helpful for us for? You know what I mean? Now, if there were some Africans that came over here to be enslaved who were Muslim, now that is an African culture. Well, it's not. I would not even call Islam African because Africa is really a new concept. That continent was named Africa in the 1800s before it was carved up in the Berlin Conference and became 55 different countries. Now, if Islam is something that was lost in this exegesis, that's something that will be helpful. But if it's something else, I don't know if it's that helpful because it's not helping them back on the continent.
Included the woman heading the house, was needed under the system of American slavery, and it was not something that was of African origin. In a situation where no legal recognition of family existed, the dominant position of the woman in the Negro family was due to the concession that had to be made to the needs of the children as well as to attachment of mothers to their offspring. Even in the matter of religion, there are no evidences of African survivals as in the West Indies and in Brazil. Moreover, When the folk beliefs of the Negro are studied, it is difficult to disentangle the African elements from European folklore and practices and those folk beliefs which are a product of the American experience. The folk culture of the Negro was associated with the church, which has been the most important institution in the rural communities of the South. In fact, the community derived its name from the church, most often Baptist or Methodist, and the location of the membership of a particular church defined the limits of the communal life. It has been in the church that the Negro has found a meaning for existence, and it was the church that enlisted his deepest loyalties. The church set up and defined the norms and moral conduct and provided.
And that's why I don't think that is a bad thing. I know people have problems with religion, and I understand, especially as someone who has used religion to develop my own relationship with God. And now with that, I don't really feel like I don't need religion to be an intermediary with my relationship with God. But I do feel like the church, the synagogue, the mosque is very helpful to maintain community. And that's how you have a community of people that have the same morals, values, code as you. So, I mean, today the problem with the Black church is that it's fraudulent, and the pastors are stealing money. They're sleeping with the women in the church. It's not standing on the morals and values that it once did, but it was once helpful.
The necessary discipline to enforce its rules and behavior. It was the church that the Negro spirituals or religious folk songs were born. So the church was the most important aspect of the Negro's life. And because it meant so much to them, they developed a deep emotional attachment to that institution, which still lingers today in many of the descendants of those people who make up the most religious group in America, right? These are the roots as to why the Black Americans are the most religious, right? It's not because they found some truth or anything like that. It's because the church was the institution that was necessary for the people to get through the slave experience that they had, because it offered at least some level of hope, right? Let's continue. In these religious folk songs, the Negro attempted to find his meaning for his existence and at the same time an escape from his tragic fate. You see that? It gave them some form of escape from the miserable condition that they found themselves in. It was a tool that they used for that time and place to serve that purpose. Let's continue. The folk tradition of the Negro, like the gentile tradition,
And I think it would still serve a purpose today. You know what I mean? If it wasn't fraudulent. A lot was created within the Black church. And the Black church also kept people safe. It serves a different purpose today. And the purpose today is not the same as the past. It seems like what Brooklyn St. Michael and this E. Franklin Frazier person who wrote The Black Bourgeoisie is trying to do, it's really trying to, one, degrade the former slave class and their culture and traditions because it didn't coincide with the same culture and traditions of the upper class mulattoes. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
has been dissipated or transformed as the result of migration and urbanization. During their wanderings, the Negro folk have created the blues, which tell of their disillusionment and nostalgic yearning for the sympathy and understanding of the world of the folk which they have left. The secular folk song of these Black troubadours in American industrial society are living records of the reaction of the uprooted Black folk in the world of the city. In the countless storefront churches of northern cities, the Negro migrant has vainly attempted to cling to the traditional religious life of the rural South, right? So some people just didn't want to give it up because it's comfortable for humans to do the same things that they're used to doing. And the church life.
But why would they have to give it up? That's what I don't understand. Why would they have to give that up? Yet my mom's pastor's wife. Oh, hold on. Let me go back. Right. People act like it was a lot of African people that was on the ship when most of them probably wasn't. Exactly. A lot of people died in the transatlantic slave trade. My mom's pastor's wife wouldn't allow her and my grandma to stay in the church during a snowstorm. Yeah, it's like the church. This is what I believe, because I keep talking about this new era that we're in. The old cycle of the world is over. And we're moving into a new cycle. A lot of things aren't going to come with us in the new cycle. I don't think Christianity in the form that it's in is going to come in the form is going to come with us into the new cycle. Because if Christianity is going to allow you to let your parishioners not stay in the church during a snowstorm, that's not useful to us. You know what I mean? These primitive African languages, they're probably not going to come with us into the new world, because their cultures are probably not going to come with us into the new world. There's a lot of habits that we have as people that aren't going to come with us into the new world. Even myself, there's a lot of things that I'm not taking into the new world. And it's because it does not serve us. But when he says the church and the religion and the Christianity these people brought from the South up to the North, that they were trying to cling on to, like it's a bad thing. I don't understand that. I don't know. This E. Franklin guy who wrote this book seems like a real jackass. And my mom is the first lady helper to see, you know what? Like, come on now. I'm flabbergasted.
Of the rural South, it created this type of comforting effect in the people who moved into the city. Let's continue. But more often, with the loss of his simple faith in the world of the city, he has sought salvation in various religious cults, some with nationalistic aims, which are indicative of his groping to find an escape from the white man's world. As a result of contacts with the public school, the children of the folk have sloughed off the folk belief of their parents and learned the secular scientific techniques of survival in urban environment. Thus, instead of their old resignation towards the world, the Negro masses are acquiring a confidence in the efficacy of their effort through the use of the ballot and joining with fellows through the use of unions. So that was
You hear that? It's like they were hoping that these people would leave the South, leave their spiritual practices in the South and come to the North and work in this system that's not going to help them. They knew that their spirituality was the one that was their salvation. And they still let it go, and it became one with the system that was going to oppress them. Voting, unions, this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, that is annoying. That is very annoying.
Some of the background on the two different traditional Negro.
It's annoying because now we're moving towards spirituality and being more intuitive, listening to ourselves and our guidance, strengthening our relationship with God so that we can be led by God the Most High and not their gods, the devils, what they worship, which is money, sex, drugs, things that numb you. You know what I mean?
Negro cultures that developed here in America. They developed under completely different circumstances, right? And they served different purposes. Understand? So at this point, coming into the story, the Negro masses, they've moved from the South, the rural South, and they moved into the cities, a lot of them, where their culture and their mindset interacted with this newly discovered environment. And so they begin going to college, getting educated, making more money, and climbing up the economic ladder. And with this new dynamic, this is where things get interesting, right? And so let's go in here to page 125, where it says this. As the black bourgeoisie has grown in size and influence, Durham has ceased to enjoy the distinction of being its capital. Durham, North Carolina was known as the first capital of the black bourgeoisie. The Negro communities in Chicago and Detroit have both claimed to become the center of the black bourgeoisie. In either case, the shift of the capital of the black bourgeoisie from a small southern city to a northern metropolis is indicative of the change in the character and outlook of this class. Although the younger generation of Negro businessmen in Durham had acquired more thoroughly than the pioneers the psychology of modern business, they were still influenced by the older traditions that had grown up in the Negro community. And the older traditions are referring to the morals and the values that were inherited from that aristocracy class, right? The one with the free mulattoes. This was the class of Negroes that developed their culture under the circumstance of being free, right? They were the first class of Negroes that we discussed. Let's continue. They still conformed to the tradition of the gentleman, which lingered and shaped their morals and manners. They still felt some identification with the Negro masses, despite the fact that their interests might be opposed to those of the masses. This was due partly to the fact that they, as well as the Negro masses, lived under a system of rigid racial segregation. And this small group was forced to remain separate from the rest of the whites, and they were forced to live amongst the Negro masses. Here we go. Moreover, they were more closely identified with the institution in the Negro communities, which were supported by the masses. On the other hand, the black bourgeoisie, which has become important in recent years, remember this is in the 1950s, has tended to break completely with the traditions of the Negro. And this black bourgeoisie is the blacks that came from the Negro masses, the ones who were the carriers of the slave mindset and the culture, right? Remember, they began getting educated and making money. And this mass element of people, they became the new black bourgeoisie, which broke away from the traditions of the old black bourgeoisie. Let's continue. As the system of rigid racial segregation has broken down, the black bourgeoisie has lost much of its feeling of racial solidarity with the Negro masses. In the metropolitan areas of the North, where there are increasing opportunities for employment and earning money, social mobility, which means primarily the attainment of middle-class status, has become a question of the amount of money which one has to spend, right? Not how thrifty or how much money a person could save, but how much money a person could spend. This was the mindset of this new black bourgeoisie, right? The ones who came with that slave mindset. Let's continue. When a French sociologist on a study tour in the United States saw the emergence of the black bourgeoisie in northern cities, he observed that they were really colored Babbitts. And Babbitts means a materialistic professional or a materialistic business person. A person.
You hear that? Astrology, cardology, Chaldean numerology, and spirituality made me get closer to God, and it's better. My story is pretty funny. I don't know if it was last Ramadan or the Ramadan before that, but that was when I really strengthened my relationship with God. And I always had like a pack of tarot cards, like always. Like I've read tarot probably for the past like maybe 10 years or longer. But during that time, I really started picking up the cards, and I could feel, because sometimes when I pick up my cards, like I'm like, okay, this is one of my ancestors trying to talk to me. But I started really feeling the spirit of God trying to talk to me through the cards. And that's what really strengthened my relationship. And like I just started, meditating and praying a lot more. And that helped. But what I was going to say about this is like, when he has a lot of videos on this subject, by the way, but he says around in the 1950s, that's when the black bourgeoisie kind of changed, you know what I mean? And the values changed to how much you can spend and not how much you can save. And that is so important, because you see that's what's changing right now. Like people are really focusing on how much money they can save as opposed to how much money they can spend. So trends are changing. People don't care about being flashy. People don't care about showing other people how much money they have. You know what I mean? Like that's not helpful. That doesn't help our people. And if we follow history, in the 50s, that's when everyone was, well, not everyone, but there was a certain segment of our people who were trying and pushing for integration, because they didn't want to be just around Black people anymore, because where Black people were, that wasn't where the money was. And we've been losing ever since, literally losing ever since.
Who spends without thinking, right? That's how the French sociologist described this new black bourgeoisie. Let's keep going. The break with traditional values is seen in the changes in the canons of respectability. Among the older upper class families in the Negro community who really stood for a middle class way of life, the canons of respectability required a stable family and conventional sex behavior. So to gain respect amongst the old Negro class that had money, the ones who stemmed from the free Negro tradition, a person was required to have a stable family and practice conventional sex behaviors, meaning with a spouse, right? Here we go. On the other hand, among the new black bourgeoisie, these values are regarded as old-fashioned virtues, and there is much confusion in thinking and behaving with reference to these values. Who is the new black bourgeoisie again? They are the descendants of those with the slave mentality, the ones that came from the shackles and the chains and developed a culture coming out of the pit, right? The people who developed a way of life from the slave environment, right? They didn't believe in those traditional morals and values that the old Negro bourgeoisie had, right? They labeled those as old-fashioned, right? So if that was old-fashioned, then what was considered the new trend with this new black bourgeoisie? Let's see. Divorces and scandals in family and sex behavior did not affect one's social status. Rather, the notoriety which one acquires in such cases adds to one's prestige. You see that? A person having family issues and having sex with all type of people, this didn't present any problems, right? It didn't lower one's status. In fact, it raised it up. And remember that this book was published in 1957. And so this gives a very important key in understanding how the blacks ended up with the dominant value system that most of them have today, right? And it's a key to understanding your way while you're wandering on the path and trying to find your way.
That is so crazy that having family issues would raise your status in this upside down value system that was created through this new black bourgeoisie who let go of all of their spirituality and came to the North and just decided that they wanted to work for a factory or get an education. And that was where their importance came from. That's where their identity stemmed from. And then you see like a reemergence of it again in the 2010s, 2020s, I'll say. You see a reemergence in that, where being scandalous gives you more social capital.
Right, let's continue. The change in attitudes towards the old-fashioned bourgeoisie values is due largely to the fact that the new bourgeoisie is recruited from those elements in the Negro population among whom these virtues never existed, and that money has become the chief requirement for social acceptance. You see that? These values and morals were never learned in the slave environment and developed in the slave culture. It's not like humans naturally understand that they should have conventional sex standards, right? Humans, when they're left to their own devices, they naturally want to do just like other animals do, and that's mate with minimal restrictions. Understand? Conventional sex behavior, that's a cultural approach that's designed to tame the animal instinct within the human, right? And it's something that has to be taught, conditioned, and also upheld through expectations of the people and of the community. And so this was not the culture of the slaves. And so when they were set free, their offspring came into the rest of the society with a particular set of values that shaped the way that they interacted with the new environment that they found themselves in. And so as certain members from this group began to earn more money, they began to reinforce their inherited values on the rest of the black community. Now watch this. Among the professional classes in the Negro community, actors and entertainers are relatively numerous and have the largest incomes. Here we go. The actors and entertainers, who very often have a lower class background in the social hierarchy of the Negro community, exercise a far greater influence upon the morals and manners in the Negro community than actors and entertainers in the white community.
And still, it's the same thing today. But the crazy thing about our actors and our entertainers and our celebrities, they don't have as much money as they pretend to have.
And so these actors and entertainers were from the lowest class of the Negroes, or they were blacks that were the furthest down in the pit. And in terms of today, they would be equivalent to the blacks that are coming from the inner city projects, right? The ones who become rappers, athletes, and entertainers. And they have much more influence on that community than what those types of people have in a community like the white community, or the Indian American community, or the Vietnamese American community, or the Chinese American community. And they typically bring a set of values with them that keep that community going round and round in this never-ending cycle, right? And having people wondering what's wrong with those people, right? And they're also funded by many of the white folks. And both of them together, right, they eat lunch off of that community and suck the energy all out of that community, suck it dry, right? And they're the ones that are highly influential to the youth, right? Just as they were in the 1950s when this book was written. Let's continue. Their prestige is owing partly to the glamour of their personalities, but more especially to their financial success, which is due to their support by the white world. That's what we just talked about right here. They're funding it, and both of them together are eating off of that community, right? And it keeps that community because it keeps projecting those type of values, those type of morals in that community, and those type of deeds and actions in that community, and it keeps them suppressed while groups of them keep eating and coming up, right? And they're working together collectively, eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner off of that community. And that community stays down because they don't have the right values, morals, and the right culture to climb out of it, right? But they're working in there hand in hand. Let's continue. The black bourgeoisie is also being recruited from the successful underworld Negroes who have gained their money from gambling, prostitution, bootlegging, and the numbers, right? It's coming from all the people whose home resides down in the underworld, right? Today, you can add the drug dealers to that list as well. Let's continue. The old upper class in the Negro community erected an impenetrable barrier between themselves and Negroes who represented the sporting and criminal world. And why did they do that? So their offspring wouldn't be infected with those types of values and they wouldn't be influenced.
And you see now, gambling is a huge thing right now. You can't even watch any type of sports broadcast without them talking about prize picks. I don't know. I don't gamble, so I don't know what it is. But I've heard, I've heard of this company, Prize Picks. They're doing all this sports betting and they're making it normal. They're making it normal. So all of these things that were kind of hidden in society, you know what I mean? They were pushed to the lower rungs, are now in plain sight. Gambling. You can't watch TV without seeing 1,000 liquor commercials. Even something like like lingerie commercials, you're seeing that on YouTube. You know what I mean? And in my opinion, like a lingerie commercial is just like soft porn. So all of these things that were hidden before, they're all in the forefront now. And it's funny that they're talking about all of these things that happened with the upper class and the Negro community in the 50s, but it was like, this was like a test run for what they're doing now for the entire world. This is happening everywhere.
By those types of people. That's why separation is a very powerful tool when it's used for the right reason, right? It's a foolish thing to think that you can unite all people in all areas of life. It just doesn't work that way. Sometimes the best thing to do is just to separate from people, just like this older upper class of blacks did. Let's continue. Since such Negroes were generally able to handle more money than the majority of Negroes, with the emergence of the new black bourgeoisie, the standards of consumption, which the sporting and criminal elements are able to maintain, have become the measure of success among the black middle class. The standards which they set are emulated by Negroes in the professional classes, doctors, dentists, and lawyers, and even teachers, as far as they are able to do so. But more important still, in order to secure the money necessary to maintain these standards, Negro professional men engage in the same rackets as the successful Negroes in the underworld. Consequently, among the black bourgeoisie, an expensive automobile, a palatial residence, and a yacht bring more recognition to a doctor than some achievements in medicine. And is that still true today in that community? And will it still be true in the next 70 years? Think about it. At the summer resort,
I don't think it'll still be the same in the next 70 years because people just don't have that money anymore. Like, I just I saw this tweet from Frank Ski. Hold on, I'm gonna find it because I retweeted it, and I want you to hear this.
Grand closing. I'm Frank Ski, and I'm just frankly speaking. Listen, I never thought I would ever say this, but guess what? I know you've been looking around your town and you've been noticing that there's a lot of restaurants closing up shop. There's a lot of entertainment venues that aren't open anymore. There's a lot going on, and you're like, hey, why is everybody closing? Let me tell you what they're not telling you. Americans aren't drinking as much anymore. Not just Americans, but specifically Gen Zers. 29 and under, the lowest period ever. And part of the reason, yes, because a lot of young people are vaping and THC pens, and that causes you not to want to drink. But Americans in general aren't being as social as they used to be. And what's happening is clubs, bars, and especially dining casual restaurants are catching it like you would not believe. Hundreds have closed in D.C., New York, Atlanta, Charlotte, Houston. Major cities across America are seeing a decline in nightlife because people aren't drinking and they're not going out like they used to. So I got a message for all my restaurant owners and my club and bar owners. It's all about the experience, my friend. You better start paying attention to creating the experience. If you're not creating the experience, people aren't coming. So I got a question. How many times do you go out a month now? Please put it in the comments. Let me know, because I want to show everybody something. People aren't going out like they used to. Not anymore. And especially, we not drinking. Man, when was the last time I even went to a happy hour? I'm Frank Ski, and I'm just frankly speaking.
First of all, Frank Ski used to have a club down here in Atlanta. So he's part of the problem with the club culture and how you go to a club, you got to buy a section. That's what, $500. And then you have to buy the bottles that go with them. And the bottles in a liquor store are $20, $30. But in the club, it's $200, $300. You know what I mean? this tax that they give you in order for you to feel like you're a celebrity or you're famous, but they're really just robbing you. Nobody wants to participate in that anymore. They're acting like it's just people not drinking anymore. I mean, I'm sure there are people aren't drinking. I don't drink. But I don't think that's the only thing. It's the fact that you go to these places and they're extremely overpriced and people cannot afford that anymore. And one thing that he was right about is it's the experience. Nobody wants to go into these places and feel like they're being robbed. And that's clearly what is happening. I will say one thing about those GLP-1 drugs, they completely eradicate any addiction that you have. So if you had a shopping addiction, it gets rid of that as well. So he could have a point with that. I don't know if Gen Z isn't drinking. I don't really know too many Gen Z people, but I also don't drink and I don't hang out in bars and clubs. But when I did, only reason why I'm there is because I'm drinking. But now you go to these places and one drink is $20. Like it's just not fun anymore. You feel like you're getting robbed. You got to go to the door, you got to pay to get in, and then you have to buy drinks. And if they have food, you have to buy it's just too much. That's not how people are having fun anymore. And they need to stop pretending like this is just some type of anomaly. They're all trying to pretend like they don't understand. Like I said, they want to create any scenario to explain why people aren't buying into nightlife anymore, instead of just conceding to the fact that it's just not fun. It's not fun. You're going out and you're just paying to be robbed. I'm going to read my the responses. Nobody dances anymore. Just a bunch of goons standing around flexing with an overpriced bottle. People don't have the money to party like the boomers did, and they don't get it. Nothing is fun when you can't have basic independence or financial freedom. One thing about it, the boomers in my family, that's all they know how to do is party. Like when my family gets together, it is so much fun because everybody is partying, everybody's drinking, they're dancing, they're playing games and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But they enjoyed a different type of life than we're enjoying right now. You know what I mean? Like we are in a very, very precarious state. We're not going to be able to enjoy those types of things that they enjoyed. My family, my granddaddy, he retired when he was in his 50s. He's still alive. He's 80 now. None of us are going to have that luxury. Mofos don't dance, are probably antisocial, and simply want to take pics to impress strangers on social media. It's probably more functional alcoholics this generation more than any. Not the way I see them drinking cut waters, seltzer water, beer. Gen Z got diabetes, so they fell back to the gluten-free clear alcohol from the cognac, bourbon, and brandy. More and more, when people get older, their definition of fun changes. There are some who are still 60 and using the definition of fun they used when they were 20. But most often people change definitions of fun the older they get. I mean, that's what I did. When I was in my 20s, I used to be a party animal. And then I woke up like right before I turned 30. That's when I stopped drinking. I quit drinking before I turned 30. Because I just woke up and I was like, I feel like I'm just drinking to drink and it's just not fun anymore. And I didn't understand why, you know what I mean? But I just stopped drinking. And I think like a month after my birthday, me and one of my girlfriends went to this garden party and I just did not have a good time. And I tried to drink in order to have a good time and it just didn't. And from that point on, I just don't drink because what's the point? And I don't go out to places that I feel like I have to drink in order to have a good time because I know I'm not going to drink and I'm not going to have a good time. Drinking is way more expensive than weed. What do you think about the nightclubs where no cell phones are allowed? Ooh. And we are also very broke. Hello? Oh, that's Amir. Amir just pulled into the driveway, I think. Yes, he did. So I'm gonna have to get off with y'all. But yeah, this was a very great live. We should probably finish out the video, huh? Let's finish it out.
Where the black bourgeoisie gathered to display their wealth, the descendants of the old respectable families must defer to the underworld elements who, through their money, have risen to the top of Negro society. That's who has risen to the top of the black community. The lower class underworld Negroes who brought certain values with them that they inherited from the pits of slavery, right? They took over the head of the black community, and it is they who have the largest influence within that community. So I want you to think about that. Having abandoned their social heritage and being rejected by the white world, the black bourgeoisie have an intense feeling of inferiority, constantly seeking various forms of recognition and place great value upon status.
And you think and it's very clear with our politicians, like Jasmine Crockett. She didn't used to be a hood rat, but now she's performing being a hood rat because she feels like that's what she has to do in order to appeal to the Black American masses. And it just does not make sense. Like, why are you acting this way? This is not you. And the same thing happened with Beyonce. I think I don't remember what album it was, but she started talking, cursing in her music, acting very sexually, overtly sexual. And it was like night and day. Like, why are you acting this way? Assalamu alaikum. I'm on live. I'm trying to finish up. I'm almost done though. We'll finish this, but you think about someone like Jay-Z. Jay-Z, you're a former drug dealer, but now you're pretending like you're like the king of this Black excellence movement. We should not be looking up to you. We should not be looking up to your wife. And I absolutely disagree with most of everything that he's saying in this, because I feel like the values of our ancestors, it doesn't matter if they were enslaved or not. You know what I mean? Because I have mulatto ancestors as well. We need to be looking to them for their resilience, because the fact that they survived and we're alive today is a huge cultural achievement. And I think that needs to be said.
Symbols in order to compensate for their inferiority complex, right? Thinking that material possessions were going to gain them some recognition in the world, and that's just not the case, right? Material things, they're just material things. And that's how we need to look at them, right? They're just material things. And all the material things do enhance our comfort in the physical world. Obtaining them should never be placed in priority above the intangible possessions that come from within, right? Things like understanding, respect, peace, originality, integrity, sincerity, and empathy, right? And so I want you to think about this. And I want you to think about this entire lesson as you continue on your journey moving into the free world. And so I want to thank you for watching all the way into the end. My name is Brooklyn St. Michael, and I'll see you in the free world. Now, how is it that the
That was a very great video. Please get into the comments and let me know what you think about it. Oh, we have some more comments from Danae. She says, I hate going out to the club now and I don't drink either. Yeah, I mean, I love to dance. And I can literally go to, I could put on a sweatsuit and I could go to a club, right? I could go to a club tonight and I would dance all night. Literally. But I don't have to drink to do that. Like the person that I am, I can have fun. I do not have to drink to have fun. And I don't have to go anywhere to have fun either. I'm Gen Z. I was born February 6, 1998. That's Gen Z. Oh, wow. Right. I'm starting to dislike her, and I can admit that I hated her self-title. The only Beyonce album that I like was B-Day. Seriously. I think she makes terrible music. And I don't think that the messages that she has in her music are good for women. I don't think it's good for women at all, because her music tells a story that's completely opposite to what her real life is. And I feel like these celebrities, they bask in confusion. And that's what they do. They confuse their audience. And in my opinion, that's very demonic. But on that note, I will let y'all go. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate everybody that came into the live. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to build it up. I have a lot of things that I want to do for it, and I'm actually really, really excited. I'm glad that I had anybody in here today, because I would have just been in here talking to myself. But anyways, I will see y'all in these tweets. Oh yeah, I will see y'all in these tweets, and assalamu alaikum.